Ethan stared at the horizon, the orange sun of Xeron, forecasting long shadows over the mining colony. The hum of machinery mixed with the distant cries of alien birds, a sound both eerie and beautiful. He had been assigned to the planet 6 months ago, a human engineer tasked with keeping the colony's energy systems operational. Life on Xeron 4 was hard, but the humans were determined to make it work. The colony was small, just a collection of domed habitats connected by narrow metal walkways. Outside, the planet stretched into untamed wilderness. The human leadership had warned everyone to avoid venturing too far into the forests, as the alien wildlife was unpredictable. But Ethan had always been curious. He adjusted his helmet and activated the rover, checking the energy readings one last time before leaving. Today he planned to explore a valley near the northern cliffs, a place rumored to have strange ruins from an ancient civilization. No one had gone there in weeks. As the rover trundled through the thick underbrush, Ethan's thoughts wandered. He missed Earth, sometimes the smell of rain, the soft green grass, the sound of the ocean, but there was a thrill in being on Xeron, for that he could not deny. Every day brought a new challenge, new mystery waiting to be solved. The forest grew denser, trees twisting toward the sky, their leaves a shimmering mix of blue and silver. Strange flowers with translucent petals glowed faintly in the dim light. Ethan stopped to take a photo, marveling at the beauty. Then he heard it, a low growl, almost human in its warning. Ethan froze. The rover's headlights swept over the underbrush, but he saw nothing. Another growl, closer this time. His heart raced. Humans had heard stories of wolf-like creatures roaming these forests. They were said to be intelligent, but no human had seen one in years. Easy, he whispered to himself, gripping the rover's controls. He slowly moved forward, trying to make as little noise as possible. Then he saw her. She was standing just beyond a grove of luminous flowers, her eyes glowing softly in the dim light. Her body was humanoid but covered in silver fur, with pointed ears and a bushy tail that twitched nervously. She watched him intently, every muscle poised, alert. Ethan's breath caught. You're real," he murmured. He had expected to see a creature like this in simulations or recordings, not standing in front of him, alive. The alien wolf girl didn't move. Her gaze was curious but cautious. Ethan slowly raised a hand in greeting, hoping she would understand he meant no harm. "Hey, I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. "I'm just exploring." For a moment, she simply stared. Then, with incredible speed, she darted behind a tree. Ethan froze, unsure whether she had fled in fear or was planning something else. His heart pounded in his chest. He remembered the survival protocols. Never corner an alien creature, never make sudden movements, always respect their space. So he stayed still, keeping his rover's lights dimmed. Minutes passed. The forest was quiet again, except for the soft rustling of leaves. Then, cautiously, she stepped out from behind the tree. Her movements were graceful, almost like she was floating. She tilted her head, observing him carefully. Ethan's curiosity got the better of him. He slowly stepped out of the rover, keeping his hands raised. "I'm Ethan," he said, smiling. "I don't know your name, but I want to understand you. I want to be friends." The wolf girl's ears twitched. She sniffed the air, as if sensing the truth in his words. Then, surprisingly, she walked closer, stopping a few feet away. Ethan held his breath, unsure what would happen next. She didn't attack. She didn't run. She simply looked at him, eyes wide and intelligent, and then sat on her haunches. Ethan exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. "Okay, I guess that's a start," he muttered. "I just need to learn more about you." He took a step closer, careful not to frighten her. She didn't move. Her tail flicked slowly, a sign he interpreted as curiosity. Ethan remembered the supplies he always carried, a small bag of dried fruits and nutrient bars. He placed a piece on the ground and stepped back. The wolf girl sniffed it, then cautiously picked it up. She examined it for a moment before eating it. Ethan smiled. "See? I'm not dangerous." For hours, he watched her, learning small details, how she tilted her ears when listening, how her eyes followed every movement, how her fur shimmered under the alien sun. He realized that despite her wolf-like features, there was something profoundly human in her expression's curiosity, caution, intelligence. As the sun began to set, Ethan realized he needed to return to the colony. He didn't want to leave her, but he also didn't want to frighten her by staying too long. "Hey, I'll come back tomorrow," he said. "If you want, you don't have to, but I'll be here." She cocked her head but didn't leave. It was the closest thing to agreement he could hope for. Ethan carefully backed the rover out of the grove, keeping his eyes on her until he was a safe distance away. Then he drove back to the colony, heart racing with excitement. Back in his quarters, Ethan documented everything. He drew sketches, wrote detailed notes, and even tried to analyze her behavior. He couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was the start of something extraordinary. Over the next few days, Ethan returned to the same grove. Each time, the wolf girl whom he had started calling Lyra in his notes. After a mythical figure from Earth, legends watched him from a distance. He learned her movements, her patterns, and gradually, she allowed him to approach closer. One morning, as he approached the grove, he noticed her crouched low, ears back, eyes wide. Something was wrong. Following her gaze, Ethan saw a group of alien hunters, strange insect-like creatures approaching through the underbrush. They hadn't noticed him yet, but he knew he had to act fast. "Lyra, stay close," he whispered. She hesitated, but instinctively moved toward him. Ethan grabbed a stick and used it to create a loud noise, startling the hunters and buying them time. They ran together, Ethan guiding her through hidden paths and over streams, until the hunters gave up the chase. Once safe, Lyra looked at him, her eyes reflecting gratitude. She let out a soft howl, almost like a laugh. Ethan smiled, realizing that trust was forming between them not through words, but through shared experience. Days turned into weeks. Ethan and Lyra spent more time together, exploring the forest and learning about each other. He showed her tools, simple machines, and ways humans harvested energy from the sun and wind. She showed him hidden streams, rare plants, and secret paths that no human had ever seen. Ethan began to see the forest through her eyes. The way she moved, the way she listened to the wind, the way she understood the rhythms of life. He realized humans had much to learn from this world, and perhaps she had much to learn from humans as well. One evening, under a sky painted with 2 moons, Ethan sat beside her near a bubbling stream. "Lyra, do you understand me?" he asked softly. She tilted her head but didn't respond. He laughed. "Maybe not. But I understand you. I think that counts." Lyra nudged his hand with her nose, a gesture that made him smile. For a moment, it felt like nothing else in the universe existed, just a human and an alien wolf girl, sharing a quiet understanding, but the colony was not far. Ethan knew that others might not be as open-minded as he was. Humans often feared what they did not understand. He also knew that the more time he spent here, the greater the risk of discovery by others, humans or alien predators alike. That night, as he returned to the colony, Ethan made a decision. He would continue to explore and learn from Lyra, but he would also find a way to protect her. She was not just an alien. She was a symbol of the planet's mystery, intelligence, and beauty. And more than that, she had already captured something in his heart that he could not ignore. The next morning, he packed extra supplies and headed back to the grove. Lyra was waiting, her eyes bright with recognition. She circled him once, then stood still, as if to say, "Let's go." Together, they ventured deeper into the forest than Ethan had ever gone. Strange plants glowed faintly, and alien creatures watched from the shadows. He realized that this world was full of wonders, dangers, and lessons. And with Lyra by his side, he felt ready to face them all. Hours passed, and they reached a small clearing where ancient ruins lay half-buried in moss and vines. Ethan's eyes widened. These ruins were older than the colony, older than any human record suggested. Symbols etched into the stone hinted at a civilization long gone. but one that had perhaps influenced Lyra's people. Lyra stepped forward, sniffing the air, then turned to look at him. It was clear she recognized the importance of this place. Ethan carefully documented the ruins, careful not to disturb them. He realized that this discovery could change humanity's understanding of alien life forever. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan and Lyra sat together among the ruins. The forest was alive with soft whispers of wind, the distant calls of alien animals, the faint glow of bioluminescent plants. Lyra. "Thank you, Ethan," said softly. "For trusting me? For showing me this world." She nudged his hand again, her eyes reflecting the fading light. Ethan smiled. For the first time, he felt that humans were not alone in the galaxy, and that maybe, just maybe, they could belong here, alongside others who were different, intelligent and full of life. That night, as he returned to the colony under the twin moons of Zeron IV, Ethan's mind buzzed with possibilities. He knew there would be challenges ahead, humans might not understand, dangers might come, and Lyra's people. The morning sun rose over Zeron IV, painting the forest in shades of gold and silver. Ethan packed his gear carefully, making sure to include extra water, energy bars, and tools. Today, he intended to venture deeper into the alien forest, following paths Lyra had shown him. Something about her behavior yesterday hinted at a secret. She wanted him to see something important. Lyra waited near the grove, her silver fur glistening in the sunlight. She circled Ethan once, sniffing the air, before leading him silently into the dense forest. Ethan followed closely, marveling at the alien plants that shimmered faintly, their colors shifting with every step. The air smelled sweet, like wild berries mixed with fresh rain. "You really know this place well," Ethan whispered. "I wouldn't have survived half of it without you." Lyra tilted her head, her glowing eyes reflecting curiosity. Though she could not speak human words, her expressions were clear. Trust, caution, and a strange hint of pride. Ethan smiled. Somehow, he understood her. The deeper they went, the more unusual the forest became. Trees grew in spirals, their leaves sparkling like crystal. Strange animals darted between the underbrush, some with translucent wings, others with glowing stripes. Ethan's mind raced with possibilities. This forest was alive with discoveries humans had never seen. Suddenly, Lyra stopped. She crouched low, ears flat against her head, eyes scanning the surroundings. Ethan followed her gaze and froze. Ahead, a group of large alien creatures moved through the trees. Their bodies were massive, with armored shells and glowing red eyes. Ethan recognized them from colony reports, Iran IV's apex predators. "Lyra, we need to be careful," he whispered. She growled softly, a low warning that sent a shiver down his spine. Ethan crouched beside a thick tree trunk, watching as the creatures passed by. They did not notice him or Lyra, who remained perfectly still. Once the predators moved on, Lyra exhaled softly and gestured with a quick tail flick, urging Ethan to follow her again. They walked until they reached a hidden clearing. At its center was a small village, built entirely of natural materials, twisted vines, stones, and wood. Small huts formed a circle around a glowing crystal that pulsed gently in the center. Ethan's jaw dropped. You live here?" he asked quietly. Lyra nodded, her ears twitching nervously. Humans had only assumed the forest was wild and empty. To find an intelligent civilization hidden here was beyond anything he had imagined. The alien wolves began emerging from the huts, their silver fur and golden eyes glinting in the sunlight. They were cautious, but not hostile. Ethan stayed where he was, hands raised slightly in a peaceful gesture. Lyra moved forward, walking confidently among her pack, introducing him in her own silent way. One of the elders, larger and older than the others, stepped forward. His fur was streaked with white, and his gaze was piercing. He sniffed the air, studying Ethan carefully. Then, to Ethan's surprise, he sat down and gestured toward the crystal in the center of the village. It was clear he wanted Ethan to see something important. Ethan approached slowly. The crystal's glow intensified as he got closer, and he felt a strange energy in the air. It pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, warm and steady. He glanced at Lyra, who was watching him closely. She tilted her head as if to say, "It's safe." The elder wolf girl then moved closer, pressing her paw gently against the crystal. Images flickered before Ethan's eye scenes of the forest, of the alien wolves' history, their struggles, and their connection to the planet. He saw visions of conflict with the insect-like hunters who roamed the outer forests, the pack's efforts to survive, and their sacred bond with the land. Ethan's heart pounded. These wolves were not just intelligent, they had a history, a culture, and a deep respect for their world. He realized how little humans truly understood about alien life, and how much there was to learn. Lyra nudged him softly, breaking his concentration. He looked at her and she blinked slowly, a gesture of trust and reassurance. Ethan smiled. "I understand. I think," he said quietly. "I want to help, Lyra. I don't want your pack to be harmed." Lyra's ears twitched, and she made a soft sound that seemed like approval. Ethan knew then that this mission was more than exploration. It was about protecting life, respecting it, and bridging to very different worlds. Over the next few days, Ethan worked with Lyra and her pack to understand the forest better. He learned how they hunted, how they moved silently through the trees, and how they communicated through gestures and sounds he could barely imitate. He also learned about their sacred crystal, which maintained a delicate balance in the forest ecosystem. Any disturbance could be catastrophic. One afternoon, as they explored a river that glowed faintly under the sun, Lyra froze. Her ears flattened and her tail twitched. Ethan followed her gaze and saw a small group of humans approaching. They were armed with scanners and tools, likely sent by the colony to search for resources. Ethan's stomach twisted. "Lyra, we need to hide," he whispered. She nodded and led him through a hidden path only she knew, twisting and turning through dense foliage. The humans passed by, unaware of the hidden village just beyond their sight. Once safe, Ethan caught his breath. "They're going to destroy your home if they find it," he said, anger and fear mixing in his voice. Lyra growled softly, pressing close to him, as if sharing his emotions. That night, by the light of the crystal, the elder wolf girl approached Ethan. Though he could not understand her words, her gestures were clear. She was asking for his help to protect the forest, to ensure the pack survived, and to convince the humans to leave them in peace. Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of the responsibility. "I'll do it," he said softly. "I promise." Lyra's eyes softened, and she stepped closer, brushing her fur against his arm. It was a simple gesture, but it filled him with warmth and determination. He realized that his connection with Lyra had grown deeper than he expected. She was not just a guide or a friend, she had become someone he cared for profoundly. The next morning, Ethan returned to the colony, carrying detailed notes about the alien wolves in their forest. He knew he had to convince the leadership that the forest was not just a resource to be exploited, was a living, intelligent world. At the colony, his reports were met with skepticism. "Humans can't befriend every alien species they find," one officer said dismissively. "You're letting imagination cloud your judgment." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I'm telling the truth," he said firmly. "They're intelligent, organized, and peaceful. We can learn from them, and if we destroy their home, we risk much more than we gain." The officer shook his head. "We'll consider it. But until then, stay on base." Ethan left the meeting frustrated but undeterred. He knew he had to protect Lyra and her pack, even if it meant working outside official channels. He spent the next few days preparing gathering supplies, studying the forest maps, and planning a route that humans would not easily follow. Meanwhile, Lyra waited in the hidden village. When Ethan returned, she greeted him with a small gesture, pressing her head lightly against his shoulder. It was their silent way of saying, "You're welcome here." Together, they explored further into the forest, discovering hidden waterfalls, strange glowing fungi, and caves that seemed to hum with energy. Ethan documented everything, careful not to disturb the delicate balance of the ecosystem. Each discovery deepened his admiration for Lyra and her people. One day, as they rested near a crystal-clear stream, Ethan noticed movement in the water. Small, fish-like creatures with translucent bodies swam lazily, their scales reflecting rainbow colors. Lyra watched them intently, making soft sounds that Ethan could not understand. He realized she was communicating with them in her own way, showing respect and harmony. Ethan laughed softly. "I wish humans could be more like you," he said. Lyra cocked her head, ears perking up as if she understood him. But the forest was not entirely peaceful. One evening, a group of insect-like hunters returned, larger and more aggressive than before. Ethan and Lyra had to move quickly, navigating through the dense undergrowth to avoid detection. Lyra's knowledge of the forest was unmatched. She knew every hidden path, every safe place to hide. They found shelter in a cave lit by bioluminescent plants. Ethan checked his equipment and saw that the hunters had not followed them inside. He exhaled, grateful for Lyra's instincts. "You saved us again," he said softly. Lyra nudged his hand, a gesture of trust and shared relief. Ethan realized that their bond was growing stronger, forged through danger, respect, and shared understanding. Over the following days, Ethan worked on a plan to protect the forest. He sketched maps, identified areas most at risk, and devised ways to communicate with the colony without revealing Lyra's exact location. He knew that convincing the humans would be difficult, but he was determined. Lyra stayed by his side, guiding him, teaching him, and silently supporting him. Ethan had never felt so connected to another being, human or alien. Her presence gave him courage, and he knew that together they could face whatever challenges awaited. As the sun set over Xeron 4, Ethan and Lyra sat together on a moss-covered rock, overlooking the forest. The air was filled with the songs of alien birds and the gentle rustle of leaves. Ethan felt a sense of peace, knowing that despite the dangers, he had found something extraordinary: trust, friendship, and a bond that transcended species. Ethan returned to the colony the next morning, carrying his sketches and notes about the forest, the crystal, and Lyra's pack. He knew he had to convince the leadership of the importance of the alien wolves and their home. But after weeks of exploration, he had learned that human politics could be as tricky as navigating an alien jungle. In the conference room, Ethan laid out his findings. He spoke clearly, avoiding exaggeration. "This forest is alive, intelligent in its own way. The wolves here Lyra's people have a culture, a history, and a bond with this land. If we interfere, we risk destroying something irreplaceable." The room was silent for a moment. Then Commander Ralston, the head of the colony, spoke. "Ethan, we appreciate your work, but our priority is survival. Resources are limited. We can't let imagination slow progress." Ethan felt a flash of frustration. "It's not imagination. The wolves are real. I've met one later on. She trusted me. There's more at stake than resources. There's life, intelligence, a connection we don't understand yet." Ralston frowned. "You're asking us to risk human safety for alien creatures? That's not how we operate." Ethan clenched his fists, but forced himself to stay calm. "I'm not asking for risk. I'm asking for understanding. If we work with them, not against them, we can gain knowledge, protection, and maybe even allies in this system. The forest can teach us if we respect it." Ralston shook his head. "We'll consider your report. That's all for now." Defeated but not broken, Ethan returned to his quarters. He knew convincing the humans would take time and patience. Meanwhile, the forest and Lyra were waiting for him. Back in the grove, Lyra greeted him with a soft nuzzle. She led him deeper into the forest than he had ever been. Ethan noticed that the plants here glowed more brightly, and the air carried a gentle hum, like the forest itself was alive and aware of their presence. Lyra stopped at a cliff, overlooking a waterfall cascading into a crystal-clear pool below. Ethan stared in awe. "It's incredible," he whispered. He realized that the forest was more than just home for the wolves. It was a living sanctuary. Carefully balanced by the pack's presence and care, Lyra pressed close to him, her warm fur brushing against his arm. Ethan smiled, feeling a deep sense of connection. "I'll protect this place, Lyra. I promise." That night, under the light of Xeron IV's twin moons, Ethan lay awake in the forest. He thought about the colony, about Commander Ralston's skepticism, and about the wolves' survival. He realized that if humans continued to exploit the planet without understanding it, the consequences could be disastrous. The next day, Ethan and Lyra worked together to gather information about the forest's resources and its dangers. They discovered hidden caves, rare plants with healing properties, and streams teeming with strange fish. Ethan carefully recorded everything, hoping to show the colony that the forest was more valuable alive than exploited. But danger was never far. The insect-like hunters had returned, larger in number and more aggressive. Ethan and Lyra had to navigate through narrow paths and hidden tunnels to avoid them. Each encounter tested their trust, coordination, courage. During one close escape, Ethan slipped on a moss-covered rock near a stream. A hunter was close behind, its claws scraping the stone. Lyra lunged, growling loudly, and struck the hunter with her paw, giving Ethan just enough time to scramble to safety. Together, they ran deeper into the forest, hearts pounding. Once safe, Ethan sat down, breathless. Lyra pressed against him, her tail wrapped protectively around his leg. He realized that their bond had grown stronger through every challenge, every shared danger. She trusted him, and he trusted her. "We have to find a way to show the colony what's at stake," Ethan said softly. Lyra tilted her head, listening. Though she could not speak, he felt that she understood. Over the next few days, Ethan developed a plan. He would lead a small, controlled group of humans to witness the forest and its guardians firsthand, but only those who could be trusted. He knew that one careless person could ruin everything. But he also knew that seeing the forest's intelligence and beauty might change minds. He selected a few colleagues who had shown curiosity and open-mindedness. Mara, a biologist, and Joran, a resource analyst. Together, they prepared for the journey, gathering supplies and studying the maps Ethan had drawn. Lyra watched the preparations silently, her ears flicking with interest and caution. Ethan approached her. "I need you to guide them, Lyra. They need to see what I've seen, but we must be careful." Lyra circled him, then pressed her head against his hand. It was her way of agreeing, showing trust in him and the humans he had chosen. The group departed early in the morning, moving quietly through the forest. Ethan led Lyra beside him, guiding the humans along hidden paths. The bioluminescent plants glowed softly as they passed, casting eerie but beautiful light. Mara and Joran were amazed, their eyes wide with wonder. "This is incredible," Mara whispered. "It's like the forest is alive, watching us." Joran nodded, carefully taking notes. "And the wolves. Intelligent, organized. This could change everything." Lyra watched them cautiously, growling softly if anyone moved too close to sensitive areas. Ethan explained each site, each discovery, showing the humans the delicate balance the wolves maintained. They reached the Crystal Village, and Ethan motioned for them to stop. Mara gasped softly, while Joran's eyes widened. The alien wolves emerged, cautious but calm. Lyra walked forward confidently, showing the humans that they were not threats. Ethan spoke softly. "These are Lyra's people. They are intelligent, peaceful, and connected to this land. We cannot harm them." For a moment, there was silence. Then Mara stepped forward, bowing slightly, a gesture of respect. Joran followed. Even Commander Ralston, who had accompanied them secretly, nodded. His skepticism softened by the undeniable presence of life and intelligence in the forest. Ethan exhaled, relief flooding him. He knew this was a turning point. If even a few humans could understand and respect the forest, they might protect it. But challenges were not over. That night, as the group camped near the village, scouts reported unusual activity near the forest edge, miners moving in unauthorized, seeking to exploit rare crystals. Ethan knew they had to act quickly. He turned to Lyra. "We have to protect the forest. Will you help me?" Lyra pressed close, growling softly. Ethan smiled. "I knew you would." The next morning, they moved strategically, setting up barriers and guiding the human team to intervene without harming the intruders. Using Ethan's knowledge of human behavior and Lyra's understanding of the forest, they created a plan that would protect the wolves and prevent conflict. When the intruders arrived, They found themselves surrounded not by weapons, but by natural obstacles and coordinated tactics that left them no choice but to retreat. The humans were amazed at the precision and intelligence behind the defense. Ethan looked at Lyra, pride and gratitude in his eyes. "You did it," he whispered. She nudged him softly, her eyes reflecting trust and pride in their teamwork. Over the next few days, the colony formally recognized the forest's importance. Policies were adjusted, areas were marked as protected, and research efforts were redirected to understanding the ecosystem rather than exploiting it. Ethan's reports, combined with the human witnesses, had made the difference. Back in the village, Ethan walked beside Lyra, marveling at the harmony of the forest. The wolves moved gracefully, the streams flowed peacefully, and the crystal pulsed with gentle light. For the first time, he felt that humans and aliens could coexist, not as conquerors and victims, but as allies and friends. Lyra circled him, playful but cautious. Ethan laughed softly. "You're still teaching me, aren't you?" She tilted her head, tail flicking. He realized that no matter how much he learned, there would always be more lessons in this world, and he welcomed them that evening. As the twin moons rose over Xeron 4, Ethan and Lyra sat together near the crystal, reflecting on what they had accomplished. "We did it," he said softly. "We protected your home." Lyra pressed close, resting her head on his shoulder. Ethan felt a warmth unlike anything he had known, a sense of connection that transcended species. He realized that being human was enough not because of strength or technology, but because of empathy, courage, and the willingness to understand. Ethan knew challenges would continue. The colony might test its limits, other threats might arise, and the forest would always demand respect. But with Lyra by his side, he felt ready to face whatever came next. Together, they had bridged worlds, human and alien, technology and nature, curiosity and understanding. As the night deepened, Ethan looked at Lyra. "I don't know what the future holds," he whispered, "but I know one thing. I'll never let your world be harmed, and I'll always stand by you." Lyra's eyes glowed softly, her ears flicking in acknowledgement. It was their silent promise, a bond forged in trust, bravery, and respect in the heart of Xeron 4. Amidst glowing forests, alien wolves, and the hum of life, Ethan realized that humanity's greatest strength was not in domination, but in understanding, cooperation, and the courage to protect what is precious. And somewhere in the forest, Lyra and her pack watched over their home, knowing that for the first time, humans might truly be allies and friends. Ethan smiled as he settled near the crystal, feeling a peace he had never known. The journey was far from over, but the first steps toward harmony. The forest of Xeron 4 glowed softly under the twin moons. Ethan walked beside Lyra, careful to step lightly over the moss and glowing plants. The air was thick with life's hum of energy from the crystal village, the distant calls of alien birds. And the faint rustle of the trees created a symphony of sound unlike anything on Earth. Ethan had spent weeks learning the forest, its creatures, and its secrets. He had grown close to Lyra, not just as a guide, but as a friend and companion. She had taught him patience, trust, and the delicate balance of life on her planet. And he had shown her the curiosity, courage, and ingenuity of humans. Together they had begun a bridge between two worlds. But today, a sense of urgency filled the air. Scouts from the forest reported that a large human mining team had moved near the protected zones. Unlike the small group Ethan had led before, these miners were determined. Armed with heavy equipment and unaware of the delicate life around them, Ethan knew that if they reached the sacred areas, irreversible damage could occur. "We need to stop them," Ethan said quietly. Lyra's ears twitched, her eyes glowing softly in agreement. She stepped close to him, tail flicking in focus. Ethan reached out, touching her fur lightly, and whispered, "We can do this together." They began moving swiftly but silently, using the forest's hidden paths to approach the mining team. Ethan pointed out safe routes, pitfalls, and natural barriers. Lyra guided him and the forest's creatures, who seemed to sense the urgency of their mission. As they neared the mining area, Ethan's heart pounded. The humans were working near a grove of rare plants, their drills sinking into the soil. If they went deeper, the sacred crystal nearby would be at risk. Lyra stepped forward, letting out a deep, commanding howl. The sound echoed through the forest, startling the miners. Birds flew from the trees, and small creatures scattered in panic. The humans froze, looking around in confusion. Ethan stepped into view, hands raised. "Stop!" he shouted. "You cannot go further. This area is protected. If you damage it, you risk destroying a living ecosystem and an intelligent species." The miners laughed. "Protected? What are you talking about? It's just a forest. We're here for resources. You can't tell us what to do." Ethan took a deep breath, glancing at Lyra. She stood beside him, her silver fur glowing in the moonlight, eyes bright and intelligent. Ethan realized that seeing her in person, witnessing the intelligence and awareness in her gaze, might be the key to convincing them. "These creatures are intelligent," Ethan said firmly. "They have a culture, a home, and a sacred bond with this land. If you destroy it, it's not just plants and rocks, it's life, history, and knowledge. You must respect it." One of the miners stepped forward, skeptical. "Intelligent wolves. Come on. You've been in the forest too long, dreaming." Lyra growled softly, stepping closer to Ethan. Her gaze met the miner's, unwavering and powerful. She tilted her head, emitting a low, melodic sound that seemed to resonate through the forest. Ethan watched as the miner's eyes widened, a mix of fear and awe. Even without words, he could feel the forest speaking through Lyra. Ethan continued. "This forest is alive in ways we cannot yet understand. These wolves have lived here for generations. They are not enemies. They are guardians. If you harm them, the consequences could be worse than you imagine." Slowly, the miners lowered their tools. Some glanced nervously at the glowing plants, the crystal pulsing nearby, and the alien wolves surrounding them. The forest seemed alive, vibrant, and aware. It was no longer just a place; they were witnessing a world they did not fully understand. After tense moments, the lead miner stepped back. All right. Maybe we should leave this place alone," he muttered. His team began retreating, casting cautious glances at Lyra and Ethan. Ethan exhaled, relief flooding him. He glanced at Lyra, who pressed her head lightly against his shoulder, a gesture of trust and gratitude. Together, they had protected the forest once more. But the danger was not completely gone. Ethan knew that the colony might still attempt resource exploitation elsewhere. The forest needed permanent protection, and humans needed to learn that this world could not be taken by force. Returning to the Crystal Village, Ethan called a meeting with the wolves and the human allies he trusted. Mara and Joran, the two who had seen the forest firsthand, were present, along with a few other scientists. Ethan spoke clearly, outlining plans to create permanent protected zones, research areas, and educational programs for all colonists. "The forest must be respected," Ethan said. "We cannot survive here by conquering and taking. We survive by understanding, learning, and working with life around us." The wolves watched silently, their eyes reflecting approval and trust. Lyra moved beside Ethan, brushing her fur against his arm. Ethan felt a warmth unlike anything he had known. This bond, this partnership, had become a bridge not just between species, but between worlds. Over the following weeks, the colony began to implement Ethan's recommendations. Certain zones were strictly off-limits. Humans were educated about the forest's delicate ecosystem, and research programs focused on learning from the wolves rather than exploiting the land. Slowly, the human presence became less intrusive, more respectful. Ethan spent most days in the forest now, documenting the wolves, their behavior, and the balance of life. Lyra remained by his side, guiding him, protecting him, and teaching him lessons he could never have learned from books or machines. Together, they discovered new plant species, rare mineral formations, and hidden waterfalls that glowed under moonlight. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the horizon, Ethan and Lyra sat beside the crystal, reflecting on their journey. "We've done something amazing," Ethan said softly. "Humans and wolves. Together, protecting this world instead of destroying it. Lyra pressed her head against his shoulder, a gesture that spoke more than words could. Ethan smiled, realizing that their connection had grown deeper than he had imagined. She had become not only a friend, but a companion. Someone who trusted him completely. Someone whose presence filled him with purpose and hope. The elder wolf girl approached, her eyes wise and kind. She gestured toward Ethan and Lyra, then toward the colony. It was clear she acknowledged Ethan's role in bridging the worlds, in teaching humans the value of understanding and respect. Ethan bowed slightly, gratitude and humility in his expression. Life in the forest continued, vibrant and alive. Ethan found joy in simple routines, walking through the trees, documenting the wolves' behavior, helping maintain the crystal's balance. Lyra taught him to move silently, to listen to the wind, to notice the smallest signs of life. He realized that being human did not mean he was limited. It meant he had the capacity to learn, adapt, and connect. One day, a group of young wolf girls approached Ethan. They had never met a human before, and their curiosity was evident. Ethan knelt, letting them sniff and investigate him. Lyra watched, ears twitching, but allowed the interaction. The young wolves learned from Ethan, just as he had learned from Lyra. Forming a new generation of understanding between species, Ethan's heart swelled with hope. The forest, once threatened by ignorance and greed, was now a place of learning, respect, and cooperation. Humans and wolves were no longer separate. They were allies, friends, and protectors of the same world. As weeks passed, the colony fully recognized the importance of the forest. Humans who once sought to exploit it now marveled at its beauty, intelligence, and complexity. Educational programs ensured that every colonist understood the delicate balance of life and the intelligence of the alien wolves. Ethan and Lyra continued to explore together, venturing into hidden valleys and glowing caves. Each discovery strengthened their bond and deepened their understanding of the forest. They shared quiet moments, laughter, and the simple joy of companionship in a world that had once seemed alien and dangerous. One evening, as the twin moons cast silver light over the crystal village, Ethan turned to Lyra. "I never imagined I could feel so connected to another being, another world," he said softly. "But with you, I understand what it means to belong somewhere, to care for something bigger than myself." Lyra pressed her head against his shoulder, ears flicking in acknowledgement. Though she could not speak human words, her actions conveyed understanding, trust, perhaps something deeper. Ethan smiled, feeling the warmth of the moment. He realized that the forest, the wolves, and Lyra had changed him. They had shown him courage, empathy, and the power of connection. Humanity's greatest strength was not technology or weapons, it was the ability to understand, to care, and to protect life, even when it was alien. As the night deepened, Ethan and Lyra watched the forest glow with life. The crystal pulsed gently, streams sparkled under moonlight, and the wolves moved gracefully through the trees. It was a world of harmony, respect, and hope. Ethan knew challenges would come again. Humans might test limits. Other threats could emerge, but he also knew that together they could face anything. Lyra's presence, her trust, and the lessons of the forest had given him strength. He reached out, brushing a hand over her silver fur. "We've done something amazing, Lyra. We've shown that humans can be allies, friends, and protectors. And this bond we have, it's just the beginning."